Okay, okay then. All right, it's running now. Just wanted to make sure. So, as I've been saying for several years now, basically, shit, like eight. Wow, it's going on a decade. Like that's insanity. Clearly, Donald Trump is a socialist, and it's just becoming such so more and more obvious. It's crazy because it's like I think the conservatives think that the only type of socialists are Marxists, even though for many years, they used to try and convince the leftists that the Nazis were socialists, and um, that's correct. The Nazis were socialists. It's a different type. Fundamentally, it's the same underlying principles, but different rhetoric and whatnot, right? Like they were National Socialists. They kind of rejected the internationalism of Marxism and things like that. They were okay with the collectivism. They just wanted to be more exclusive with it, more or less. But so this whole thing about birthright citizenship, this is something I've been saying for the longest, basically since he started bringing that up, because it's interesting, especially since Millet came out. They're really taking more libertarian and anarchist rhetoric than ever before. And like, because this is something that we've been talking about for decades, right? Was the Fort how the, but we have a completely different perspective on it. Um, we view it as aggression against free people, right? Like what would who would otherwise be free people? Both the so-called citizen and the so-called migrant, because the state imposes itself on what would otherwise be their free market dealings, right? Because the political jurisdictions and things have no uh, they shouldn't anyway, but people believe that they should, so that they act on it. But logically, the political jurisdictions don't have anything to do with the markets, so or the economics of the situation. So, but big case today, blah blah blah. Birthright citizenship was not meant for people taking vacations to become permanent citizens of the United States. Blah 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 blah. He goes on to say, it was about the slaves, the children of the slaves, and whatnot. But our perspective has been basically, and the way that I say it anyway, though I feel comfortable in saying this, is that because many other people basically say the same things, but the way that I always word it is like the 13th Amendment basically just says that the government's the only one that can claim slaves, right? If you read it really closely and think about how the state works in the sense that it claims a monopoly on force and the administration of justice and such, it's going to be the only one that can claim slaves, right? Except as punishment for crime, and the state's the one who claims a monopoly on punishing people for committing crime. So, in the end, that basically just boils down to the state saying it's the only one that can have slaves, and then basically immediately after, the 14th is the one that claimed everyone as slaves, because Trump has given basically like the standard nonsense, like I believe in the state propaganda story about it, which, the people might have even believed that when they did this, but, um, another way to look at that, the libertarian or the anarchist way to look at that is that, immediately thereafter, they basically claimed everyone who was going to be born on the land that they were claiming as theirs as their tax subject. Um, Right, because it says if you're born here, you're subject to their jurisdiction. Um, so, in the end, that just basically turns into them claiming anyone who's born here as a tax subject, and that's why we've been against it. Because it implies that the state owns all the land. To even say that, I mean, it says right there, subject to their jurisdiction. Now, back then, they might have had, and well, surely they did. I mean, there's examples we can't cite exactly, but maybe a different perspective on what the state's jurisdiction was at the time, right? So, and clearly, I mean, I would say if you read their works, you would recognize that they did. They had a, everybody likes to parrot that, where they're like, oh man, if we were anywhere near it, it wouldn't be a problem. We're so far gone from what the founders believed in. Yeah, a lot of that's true, but in the end, it's the same thing. You're still claiming subject to the jurisdiction. So, The state claims the ultimate authority over all of the land. That's basically what it is. And that's where this, it's interesting because they're against, it really makes no sense because they're against something that it's just so bizarre. Like they themselves are collectivists, and they're railing against pretty much one of the primary collectivist tools that's been used over the last 100 and so years. Um, so the last part of that they probably would agree with. Like, yeah, it's a tool for collectivists. That's what I'm saying. But it's like you are the collectivist too. Like you can't. Like you're half. Like they're half-assing it, which I'm going to get to in a minute here. You can't. You're going to contradict yourself. You're against the 14th Amendment for the wrong reasons. And like what I'm saying here in this comment, your rights don't come from government paperwork, which is just kind of like the preface to this whole thing where it's like really none of this matters. You're looking at this all wrong. Because citizenship is nonsense, right? So you should oppose, my language here, you should oppose, but you should oppose the 14th Amendment because it implies the state owns all the land and claims you as a tax slave, not because you think the state owns all the land. Like, how is it? It's so bonkers that they are coming to the conclusion um, from a completely backward place, but unfortunately, because they are coming from that backward place, their solution is not going to be as simple or consistent and aligned with libertarian or liberty principles as it otherwise would be had they been, but why do we need to get rid of the 14th Amendment? Well, because it implies that the state owns all the land, obviously. Of course, that's what the whole concept of a state implies. So it makes sense, I guess, that they wouldn't see that, being that they are still statists ultimately. But, and just to kind of drive home the fact that Trump is a socialist. Look at this headline. So this is something I brought up about last year, probably maybe about 8 months ago or something like that. Um, Look at the headline of this. Trump's bold plan, limit credit card interest rates to 10%. But could this move lead to dangerous price controls, critics fear? Well, those are price controls. Like, yeah, that move would be price controls. It wouldn't be leading to it. It would be a price control. Um, and at first, when I started using this rhetoric and calling him a socialist and telling the Magacrats, like, look at this guy, he believes in price controls. There's other articles too. Bernie Sanders came out in favor. He's like, yeah, bro, and all this nonsense. It's like, well, yeah, that makes sense. Like, so he's also a socialist. You guys believe in this state regulation of the economy. So but it's like not even like Yahoo can like they're trying to make sense of this, I guess. Like, could this move lead to dangerous price controls? I mean, because you look at the rhetoric too. Trump says we're going to cap it at around 10%. We can't let them make 25 and 30%. Like, what does that even mean? Like, how can you even say that? I mean, one of the first things that you learn when you study market economics, laissez-faire economics, when you go really deep into the actual laissez-faire schools of thought, you learn that there's no such thing as a fair price. That's another thing that's going on with the pharmaceutical price controls that I want to talk about a little bit too. Where that one, as far as I understand it, that one doesn't sound as much as a direct order. He's kind of saying like, we want, I'm getting all off topic, but clearly a price control, right? I made a video and I tagged the person I was criticizing too. I don't know, they were some academic, who am I? They're literally writing papers and being published and things, but she was calling Kamala Harris's proposed price controls. She was saying that these aren't price controls, and I looked it up. The videos in there. It was a while back, honestly. I can't remember what it particularly was about, but it was clearly like a price control, and she just was dancing around that. And these guys are too when it comes to Trump. I guess it's like, I mean, I don't understand. Like, what else would this be? The head of the state says we are going to cap it. Credit card interest rates at 10%. The interesting part about this is it is a price control, and it's like they can't. I don't know, Yahoo or whatever, but the Magacrats can't acknowledge that because it would destroy their whole worldview, right? Like, only one of these things can be true. Either Donald Trump's not a socialist, or or he is basically like right, like either price controls are socialism or they're not. So if they're not, then I guess you can't call Harris a socialist or anybody else who does price controls. So they have to like act like this isn't a price control. Or um, recently I brought this up. I brought the credit cards up, and he just called me a stooge for not supporting it. I'm a stooge for the credit card companies and stuff. Is what his take on that was. That's their way to rationalize it. Is that this law is okay? It's different. The medical thing too, they say is different. It's a different type of commodity, and like obviously medicine has different implications than other commodities and things. But economically, no, it's not. It's the exact same thing. So price controls will do the same thing. But well, again, about the pharmaceutical things, it doesn't sound like he's saying directly as this is we're going to order everybody to lower their prices, though kind of a roundabout way, because let's go here. So it insinuates kind of that like there would be repercussions for you not obeying his order, even though it starts off kind of like he's making it sound like, well, we're just going to have these guys use market pressure to demand we get better prices. Of course, the state doesn't have market pressure. It does, in a sense, it can negotiate with its money and that, or everybody else's money, technically, obviously, but it could potentially make a dent where they say, but I mean, what could they say, honestly, though, as I'm working through this, is what could they say? We're not going to buy your medicine. It's like, who are these people to make that call, right? Like that right there just kind of shows how this whole thing, in my opinion, this shows how this whole thing is just socialist collectivist insanity, where these people, Trump included, obviously, whether he realizes this consciously or not, just view us as pawns, right? Like these people, like what is their negotiating power in this example? To not buy, to not provide the patients with their medicine, because usually, right, your market power would be like a boycott or something like this, or and spreading the word and things. Of course, their whole argument is that medicine is different. That's why we need to get the government to step in and regulate. But it's just all the same nonsense. It's the same exact argument that any socialist would make against any so-called any commodity that is perceived to be important, right? Or like defense is basically the state's big thing. Is this defense is so important and expansive and intricate and complicated that we need to have a monopoly. Just say it's the only one allowed to do it. So, in that sense, they're kind of transferring this over into the market where this commodity is special. It's so important that we need to have the government come in, even though the whole problem here is that the government insurance farms are why the prices are one of the reasons why the prices are so high anyway, right? They know that it's the same thing where you saw the articles about the Air Force was buying like $1,000 coffee cups and like office chairs, and whoever it was, several different agencies, there was reports about this, like paying these outrageous prices. Now that even could have been like embezzlement or something like that. That might have not been the actual price, but there's another good video John Stossel did, $2 million bathroom in New York, and then he went to a comparable, if not better, private bathroom. This was a public bathroom, the $2 million one in a park, and then he went to a comparable, if not better, private bathroom that cost like 200 grand or something, and it was. But there's an incentive. The state, the government employees he interviews, they attribute it to paperwork and regulations and everything, and they do so, and that's true in the sense, but there's just an incentive to where the state theoretically can't lose money in their mind, right? Like they know that they can, but in the end, they still operate in this fog where, in the back of their mind, as an institution, as it were, it doesn't really exist, this amorphous collective, but they're operating under the belief, right, that the state is just it demands compulsory payment, right? So as an institution, it just naturally has no actual incentive to try to provide quality, and that ends up trickling out into the way that the institution works, and people know and gravitate to that, and then they know that they can charge outrageous prices, and just the demand, when the state comes in with everybody's money and starts bidding on things or buying medicine and whatnot. I haven't went and looked into the intricacies of that, but I mean, number one, if they're comparing this to socialist countries, basically democratic socialist countries, are they looking at the price that the person pays? What are they really looking at when it comes to this? Because they're all like, oh, it's so cheap compared to everybody else. They're gouging us. I mean, number one, like I said, there's no such thing as that. There's no such thing as price gouging. But these guys don't understand market economics at all. They're literally at this point, it's just so obvious that they're socialists. Um, it's weird because, like, in my mind, I mean, there has to be some kind of split happening where it's just like people who supported Donald Trump are starting to realize, like, what is this guy even talking about? Speaking of that, I want to go over to this article now. Now, granted, this is kind of like secondhand information. I'm pretty sure it's linked, but I just got a threw this video on a whim real quick. But I read something here. I think it's in here, but he's like, I mean, look here, this is hilarious. In a post on Truth Social over the weekend, Trump said that as a result of the order, prescription drug and pharmaceutical prices will be reduced, in all caps, of course, almost immediately, almost, by 30 to 80%. Like, man, that's a wide margin, dude. Like, I mean, are you, like, how are you coming at these dudes? Are you giving them a point? Like, that's your wiggle room? You're going to come in at, like, maybe 60 or something and see where we go from there or something? I don't know. On Monday, he said it would bring down costs 60, 70, 80, 90%. I mean, it's just like he's just spewing whatever. And then here, but actually more than that if you think about it mathematically. Like, I mean, you only got 10% to go, bro, until you're at zero, right? Like, I mean, I don't know what is going on in his mind where he has like some objective value or something where he's like, maybe he's saying they're 90% over what everybody else is getting charged. I mean, that's the only way that could make sense, right? I mean, because it was just hilarious because dude, you've only got 10% to go. We're going to bring down costs by 90%. That means you only have 10% of what the former cost was. So I don't know what he's really talking about. It's just, I don't really think he does either. Um, he's just going to use the force of government to tell everybody they got to charge less, which, um, well, technically, I guess, like I said, this one, he's more making it sound like, uh, you know, we demand fair prices. And it's like, well, what does that even mean, a fair price? Again, there is no such thing. But also, you know, it's cockamamie nonsense, dude. It's complete socialist bunk. There was something else in here too. I was laughing at community based more days. Oh, that's where I was going. Where, like, really, what are they going to do? They demand. Okay, well, are people really going to be like going to boycott? Is Medicare and Medicaid and everybody going to boycott? And then the state's not going to let us get medicine either because of all their other laws and stuff, like their regulations. And I mean, it's just total bonkers and nonsense. These guys are complete socialist boobs. And I don't understand how people aren't seeing this. It's weird in my mind, like I was saying, because there has to be some kind of split happening. There have to be people who were just like, right, they were open to this idea. They were open to libertarianism. They heard of it, and it was like, they just weren't too familiar with it, so it sounded like total nonsense, but it would be a nice idea, something like that, where it's just like, dude, I mean, how much more does this guy have to do before you just admit that he's a socialist? He's a authoritarian collectivist, man. Like we have been saying this whole time, like, you even believe in price controls. You go in there and you even believe in any type of price control like this. It's just, you missed a big lesson somewhere. um, you are the same as the Democrats. So let's see if there's any other any other points I want to touch on real quick. Oh man, it's just totally getting so insane. I don't understand how people don't see this. I mean, the socialists kind of see what's wrong more than these guys do. But what's interesting is that the socialists don't realize that the same things are what's wrong with their beliefs, because this is their beliefs just applied to like different areas of so-called society, right? Like, the government should regulate this instead of that, the government should go after those guys instead of them, and they should benefit these guys instead of those, but in the end it's all the same nonsense. Let's see, there was some other contradiction I actually did think of a few moments ago, but Maybe that'll be for another one if it pops up. There's so many of them these days.